Brooklyn,
Hey, Shauna.
this is weird. I can only see myself. Where did the screen go?
Oh, I can see your screen perfectly. Is
Well,
it hidden somehow?
I don't know, but it's very odd. Okay,
Maybe
you can still see me?
I can still see you. Yep, for sure.
Okay, so I just minimized me so I can't see me. So at least now I can see the screen.
Okay. Yeah, you look great.
Oh, thank you.
In the middle of this screen, I see both things. Do you want to maybe try just flipping through the slides and see if? Yeah, perfect. It's perfect.
Okay.
Thanks,
All right.
Shauna.
All right.
Awesome. And we have a bunch of people signed in. Thanks so much for joining us for today's virtual training session with Shauna Quigley on Get Confident Being Consultative. We're just going to get started in about 2 minutes. Thanks, everyone. All right, Shauna, are you okay if we get started now?
Absolutely.
Amazing. So hello, everyone, and welcome to today's virtual training session called Get Confident Being Consultative, brought to you by the Canadian Professional Sales Association. This session is all about getting comfortable being consultative. It's only by asking questions that you can deliver genuine consultative value to customers to help them achieve their goals and solve their challenges. My name is Rupalyn, and I'll be your moderator. Please note that all of today's attendees have been placed on mute for the duration of the session, but that you can ask questions throughout the session using the question function in your GoToWebinar dashboard. The session will be recorded and a link to the recording will be sent to you shortly afterwards. Today's host is Shauna Quigley, Certified Sales Leader. Shauna is an executive and sales coach, experienced trainer, and high-performing sales leader with 25 years of sales management and strategic accounts experience in the CPG industry. Now, without further ado, I'll hand it over to Shauna to start.
Thank you, Rupalyn. Thanks for that great introduction, and welcome, everyone. I'm excited to have you here today. I also want to say this is going to be a very interactive, or I hope it'll be a very interactive session. So you'll see that there is a question box. Please put your questions in and I will be pausing and there will be some polls, but I'd love for you to be really engaged and keep asking questions. I love that. We're here to help you to understand this content and to go forward and make it really executable. So without further ado, what are we going to do today? Well, really what we're going to talk about is really understanding how to focus on solving the problems of your customers, getting really clear about what their needs are, and ultimately really delivering value to them. I'm using the word really a lot. So I hope you see that it's passionate and that it's such an important part of consultative selling. So consultative selling really is changing the dynamic. It's flipping the paradigm. Historically, we used to have a product. We would go in, we would talk to a customer, and it would be talking about our product. These are the features and the benefits and the why you should buy this product. So we were really telling them. But in this day and age, people need to have consultative people. We need to really understand what it is that they need. and make sure that what we're talking to them about is actually providing the solution for them. And that's the key around consultative selling. It's really making sure that we're listening to our customers, identifying what their needs are, and then coming to them with, providing a sort of essentially like a gap assessment. This is what I'm hearing. This is where we are. And am I hearing this correctly? Okay, let's provide a solution that's going to be tailor-made to you and work towards that. And part of that, as that consultancy role, is also helping them to understand what's the return on my investment in this. So it's a much higher level selling than that tell strategy. Here's my product, I'm going to shove it down your throat, versus let's tailor make a solution that really is going to work for you. And that's really the key to consultative selling, is really focusing in on them, what their situation is, and identifying and working with them to come up with the best possible solution for them, creating that partnership that you want to achieve. So today what we're going to really focus in on is the fourth step, that consultative investigation. And as you can see, it's part of a larger process called the 8-step consultative sales call process. Most of you who've taken any of the CPSA training have been through this. And it, I have to say, is an amazing framework. And it's one of those things, if you think about you building a house and you want it to weather any sort of storms, making sure you're following through on these 8 steps really helps you to provide that really solid foundation for building those long-term relationships with your customers. And it will withstand many a storm that happens. Often people will say to me, oh, as they're debriefing their sales call, and they kind of go back and think, oh, that's what I didn't do. I forgot to summarize and prioritize. So I encourage you to really, if you're not already really following through and holding on to that, make sure you're following the process. But today is about number 4, consultative investigation. So what we're going to talk about specifically around that is how we move forward. But I'm going to really quickly go through these 8 steps just to make sure that we're all on the same page. So the first step is building rapport. That's when you first walk into them, you're being very professional, you're identifying with them, you're starting to build rapport. Perhaps you're using some of the research that you've had to help to understand what type of person that they are and their role, so that you can really use those to help establish rapport. Then you're going to establish context. And it's all about how you're going to really come here. You're going to provide value to them. It's what is in it for them for participating in this meeting. Then the third step is gaining agreement to participate. And part of that is I'm going to ask you questions, and I would like to take some notes on that to make sure that I've got the information correctly. And you're really making 4 promises. And those promises are that you're not going to waste their time, that you are going to really provide something solution, that you're not going to ask them questions that are not relevant, and there's no obligation. And I'm going to have the most accurate and up-to-date information for you. And as I said, we're going into consultative investigation, and that is the really summary of what we're going to talk about today. But what's really important is that this, I would say, is probably one of the most important sections, and it is definitely what takes the most time in any of your calls. And I'm going to just leave you with that as I go through the other steps. Number 5 is a very important step, and it's one that I so often see is missed. And it can be a real game changer. So it's really, after all these amazing questions that you've asked, all right, tell me, these are the notes that I've made. Have I got that correct? And can you prioritize the orders of importance? Because sometimes the scale of what they're looking for doing is potentially outside of what they're capable of, whether it's a time or restraints. So it's really important for them to prioritize. And what that does, that step also really helps them to get real clear, which is what happens in the consultative investigation. Sometimes they just don't know really what their problems are. So this really crystallizes and provides clarity for them. And then 6, you're exploring solutions. So remember we said paradigm shift? we're not going to just shove a product. This is a Lego piece that I'm going to put in, and this is your solution. You're actually going to co-create the solution that's best for them. And then 7 is quantify the benefits. What are the specific benefits that are important to them, and how will the solution resolve their issue? And we want to, as much as possible, provide a return on investment, which there are 3 different ones. I won't go into those right now. And then you're going to secure that go forward commitment. So that might be, to the next step. It might be to an RFP, a proposal. It might be to a plant. When that's available to us, it might be a plant tour, or it might be, talking to someone in their IT division so we can go forward. All right. So that's the consultative 8-step process. And as I said, we're really going to focus in on consultative investigation for the rest of our time together. So part of that consultative selling is really getting to the heart and understanding what it is that is the issues that your customer's having. And so you need to really make sure that you're going through and you're asking a lot of questions. You're not just assuming, which is, as we said, sort of that ask, don't tell, and investigate, not sell strategy, which quite honestly, we've all grown up in a world where we have telemarketers, we go into retail, we've all had dealings with different salespeople. And we've probably been that salesperson as well, who has said, here's my product. This is what you need to do. But as you go through this, you really want to focus on diagnosing. And I love that word diagnosing. And let me share it, hopefully this visualization will sort of cement that, and as I go through this visualization, think about those 8 steps that we just talked about in that consultative selling process. So imagine for a moment you're a doctor, or you're going to see the doctor rather. It's very similar. So you're not feeling well. So you book an appointment and you go in, you arrive on the appointment and you talk to the receptionist and they take some information. This is very similar to the first stages of that. And then you wait in the waiting room, and then when it's your time for the appointment, you go into the doctor's office. And the first thing that the doctor does is that he or she kind of warms it up a little bit. Hi, how are you doing? What's new? How is this? I heard, you had a dog the last time. How's that going? So they're warming it up. That's sort of that rapport stage. And then they get into, all right, so, what brought you here today? And so you as the patient will give a few pieces of information. And the doctor continues to ask you different questions about that. When did that start? Where does the pain happen? So he's really taking note of information. And these are, it runs very parallel to consultative selling. And then he or she starts to go deeper. Okay. All right. You're saying that there's a pain in your left arm. All right. Let me see that. And then he feels, does that hurt? Does this hurt more when I do that? What kind of sensation is that? So that's a great illustration of taking what the client is saying and going deeper. You don't want just a surface understanding of what it is that their issue is. You want to keep going back and diagnosing what the real issue is and how big an issue it becomes so that you can make the most appropriate diagnosis, much like a doctor. They don't just suddenly go, oh, okay, this is your problem. After many different questions and probably some different tests, they take your blood pressure and different things, they'll come up with, I think it's potentially one of 2 or 3 things. This is how I'd like to go forward. Might be a prescription, it might be some, whatever it is. But if you think about that illustration of the doctor scenario, it's very similar to what we want to do as a consultative salesperson. We don't want to just leap to the conclusion. You certainly wouldn't go into a doctor's office and they go, oh, hi, how are you? Great. And you say, I'm not feeling well. Oh, well, you have some tragic type of thing. That wouldn't happen, right? There's a process that you go through to make sure that they're making the right and appropriate diagnosis. When you think about that, just in the questions, and Rupalin will come in, I would love to know what you think makes consultative selling so much more effective. I sure hope I've done a good job of sort of advising you that it's a really good thing. So in that vein, what makes consultative selling so effective? Please put those in the questions. And Rupalyn, I would love for you just to weigh in when you start getting some comments.
Sure thing, Shauna. So as Shauna just mentioned, please feel free to use the questions function in your GoToWebinar dashboard to put your answers in. Just give it a minute or so. There's a few responses here now. So you're showing you're interested in what they have to say.
Absolutely, absolutely. You're showing interest, and the important thing is that we sort of do something really about that, identify how we're understanding that information and how we can take that forward.
A few more here. It shows that you care. It provides more value and builds a stronger strategic relationship. It helps the customer explain the needs versus the wants, and it emphasizes a lot of listening.
Absolutely. So what I heard in that was some really great content. Number one, you're really demonstrating your expertise and knowledge, on circumstances, about the industry, about the knowledge. You're demonstrating that you care about them, and you're identifying that there's opportunities because you understand these things and you're co-creating and working with them, that you want to help them and you want to help them have the right solution, which absolutely builds those long-term strategic alliances. So absolutely fantastic. It is, yeah. Go ahead,
just another good one here. Sorry, Shauna. You're not jamming inventory. You're finding a specific need for your customer. And then Bill goes on to say, in my industry, product popularity changes regularly. Updating my clients' inventory is key.
Absolutely. Yes. Because you really want to be in service to them. So it's not that you want to be selling them. So it's a paradigm shift. You really want to make sure that you're a consultant and almost that, you're putting your needs and focus ahead of theirs. So it's not that I need to sell this product, but you're really trying to focus in on what it is that they need. How can you assist them? How can you support them and build it? As many people have said, it's about building those relationships. And one of the key things in consultative selling, it's all about questioning. You will never get those answers unless you're really active listening and asking really great questions. So many times people will say, well, what's a great question? And sometimes they'll feel like, well, I've downloaded a list of some good questions, but I don't know I don't really know how to take that. And it feels like I'm sort of doing an interrogation. Here's the thing. In your pre-work, you're going to really work to understand. You're going to try and identify what are some key things that are likely going to come up. And you're going to use those as, some thought starters as to the types of questions you got. Also base it on some, like types of customers. What are some big issues that are coming up? That's kind of a starting place. But questions are gold. And you want to make sure that you're asking them for a reason and that you're kind of building on it. So don't just ask this question and then go way over here. Think of that doctor scenario. Each of the things that the doctor is asking you is going a little bit deeper so that they have really clear understanding. So it's all in the questions. So when you think about it, again, in the questions, and Rupalyn will catch this for me, think about what are the sum of the topics that must be explored to truly understand the customer's business and deliver genuine genuine consultative value. So in your business, what would be some of the topics that you need to explore to really understand the customer's business so that you can offer genuine consultative value? That value that brings them a return on investment, that's unique value to you and your business that you offer to them. Just in the questions. Ruplin, whenever you have some, can you just pop in and let me know what you're seeing?
Sure thing, Shauna. We'll give it just a minute.
Absolutely.
We've got one here, short-term and long-term goals.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Where are they today? Where do they want to go? That's a really crucial one, because in that you can start to identify how you can really support them.
We've also got understanding their vision and strategy.
Yes.
Competitive analysis, current and future desired state.
Wow, you guys could be teaching this course.
Some great answers in here. Demographics of customer base, the challenges that they're facing that are unique to them, what's important to them, and why.
Yes, so critical. Without that understanding, how can you really consult with them? How can you really partner to make sure that you're providing the best possible solution for them? Love it. Anything else?
We've got here asked to understand the market that they serve.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, you want to get to the point that through the questioning, that ultimately you want to try and understand their business as much as they do, and perhaps even better with some of the insights that you can bring forward. Ruplin, did you have something else?
And just one more here, Shauna. What sorts of issues did they see hurting their business?
Yes, love it. Love it. Well, that's such a good segue into what we're going to be talking about. So thank you for that. Ruplin, was there anything else before I move on?
That's perfect. Thanks, Shauna.
All right. So you guys identified many of these different things just now. And it's really important that we're constantly seeking to understand their business. And in the actual handouts above, really make sure that you're downloading that. We're going to talk about that. It's a great tool for what we're going to talk about right now. So when you look at this, these are the different types of things, and you guys identified, I think, every one of them except potentially time and budget considerations and company politics. And so it's really important, where are they today? What are the things going on? What are what's their future state? Where do they want to go? Very important too, the buying decision-making process. How does that happen? Who needs to be involved? Does it take, is it a buying committee? Does it go to an RFP? These are all really important things for you to understand. You guys nailed it. You said competitive situation. Who are their competition? Now we're living in a world where we're facing more global competition than we ever did before. And I know that in my area, and I'm sure it's pretty much right across North America, now there's a lot of focus around let's support local. So you might be a national company and suddenly you're having a little bit more pressure with local suppliers because people are, feeling the pinch with COVID and wanting to support local. So there's many different things. So what's the competitive situation and how will you find that out? Time and budget considerations. So very important. What is the budget? What is the timeline you need for this? And in some cases, if the scope of the project is very large, it may be something that needs to be phased. Phase one will be completed by this, and our budget, we've allocated this budget for this. Company politics. Some of that is who was involved in the decision making. What are the activities? Where are we going? What are the relationships that we have within the organization? And what is the relationships that they have with other suppliers? And so very important is success criteria and expectations of the customer. Without knowing that, it's very difficult for us to really identify the key benefits that we're going to be providing and how that return on investment is going to be delivered. So super important. Really want to encourage you on that. And these things all help to really provide that understanding of how that business operates. You know, what's important to that client, business goals and issues which you guys so clearly identified, prioritizing of what needs to be addressed, impact, and so often it's one of the real key enablers for understanding and getting people the momentum to move forward. All of a sudden, they thought that this was an issue and they were, you know, they keep tabling, it's something I need to look at in the future. But all of a sudden, as you're probing through and you create this great awareness, all of a sudden they start to go, oh, there's a sense of urgency around this. And a great, you know, question as you're going through is, you know, what is this costing you? Those things all really highlight and create sort of a sense of urgency for you to move forward. Very, very important. Oops. So as I mentioned, in the downloads, you'll see that there's a consultative investigation question. So you might have gone, oh, Shauna, those were some good questions. How do I start? Where do I start? Highly recommend that you download this tool and get comfortable with it. And there's such great prompts on it. Look at, you know, it says the current situation. Start by getting the prospect or customer to tell you about their company. And then think about, what questions am I going to ask? Pre-work is so important. It will give you the confidence. And remember, part of this talk is about confidence in consultative selling. Showing up confident in what you're going to say and knowing information about it and how you're going to guide that is so critical. And it starts with your pre-planning. And it differentiates you from most of the people who are walking through the door or coming onto their screen in this virtual world. You're really demonstrating the expertise that you can really provide the sales and skills and knowledge and products that these customers need. You've just identified for them some key products, and there are some key problems that they perhaps weren't even aware of. So again, I'd highly encourage you to download this tool and get comfortable with it. Use it as part of your pre-call plan, as it's so powerful. All right. So we talked a lot about questions. We've identified that questions are really important and that's one of the key differentiators of being a consultative salesperson. What I'd really like to talk to you now about is what's called the client objectives map. And what that is it's 3 areas that we need to look at as consultative sales. And what I'd also say, let's just go through this first. So the first one is key business results and measures. And what this really is their current state. Where are they today? And then the next one is business issues. So this essentially is, what's getting in our way of getting to where we want to be? If I could just, you know, sort of put that as a seed. And then the third is needs and objections. And so we want to get to this point. So this is our need. And we're going to go into those in a little bit more detail. Classically, salespeople all walk in and we all start at the first or the far right-hand section, which is, oh, tell me what your needs are, and boom, that's where we try and resolve the issue. However, so often the actual need is masking some sort of greater issue. And so what we want to do as professional salespeople and true consultants is we want to start on the left side. We want to talk first about understanding. We've just garnered a lot of information about the client. We're understanding. We're really consulting to them. So we start on the left side, key business results and measures. So what are those? So these are things that you'd be asking about. Some of these things you could assess first through your research before you come in, but they're also really great questions. A very powerful question when you're working in a strategic account and developing those relationships is, understanding how your customer is evaluated. And when you can tap into those things, that can really build that relationship as well. So looking at those, what are the measures? So it might be shareholder value, sales, increased output, cost savings. So if you're thinking about if you're dealing with a procurement manager, for example, they're probably very focused around cost savings. If you're talking to someone who's managing the project and they're looking at, maybe it's time savings. It might be something, making sure that you're increasing their output. So again, depending on who they are, what their role is, there will be different measures, but there will also be corporate measures that you need to consider. So the more that you can understand those, the better that is, because those really do fill and feed into the business issues. So what are the current business issues that the client is facing? So again, current. So what are the problems? And I love this word opportunities, because a lot of problems are actually opportunities for us to support them, and opportunities for them to grow. If they fix the issue, what does that open up? What's the new possibility for them? So these can be very powerful opportunities for you to be able to identify. And I use that word opportunities. Opportunity for you, opportunity for the customer. So when you look at the business issues, you can see there's emerging markets, increased competitive threat, pressure from senior management. So when you think about, the environment we've been living in for 14 months with COVID, there has been new emerging markets. People have been pivoting. Suddenly there's global representation. Things are not necessarily so local as now they might be, global, or they might be North American wide. So there's many different types of things. And, when you look at poor performance results, it's really important to understand what is driving those poor performance results. It could be a number of different things. So getting, really digging down to understand what those performance results are really makes sense and helps you to come forward with the best possible solution. And then the needs and objections. As I said, so many salespeople, this is where they start. What's happening? Okay, I can fix that. But it's really putting a Band-Aid on the situation versus really having a cure. So you might look at this in terms of, we have this new product that's going to help you, improve your performance results. Okay. We have this product that's going to improve productivity. We have new processes and enhanced quality. So again, as that consultative salesperson, you really want to make sure that you're going through these. Start with your research. Take those amazing questions that you're asking your clients. Dig deep, try and go through from left side right through to the right side, because the quality of solution that you're going to come up with will be so much better. And a big part of that is, so often you will help them to understand what their core issues are and how to solve them. They may not even have been aware that it is a problem for them. So we have a poll. Ruplin, I'd love for you to launch this poll for me.
Sure thing, Shauna. I'm just in the middle of sharing and just distributing now. So you should all see the poll on your screen.
So I love this question. The client objectives map works best when what is explored first in an investigation?
We've got about 40% voted, so we'll give it another 30 seconds. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and close the poll now and share the answers. So we had 50% vote for key business results and measures. We had 35% vote for needs and objectives, and then 15% for business issues.
All right. So, wow, 50%. Well, good job. Excellent. Yes. You know, you guys were listening. Absolutely. You really want to focus in on that left side of the screen. Get really clear about their current state. What is it that they're measured on? Where are they going? And then take them through the other two stages of business issues and needs and objectives. Absolutely. So thank you for that. That was amazing. Okay. Shauna, you've been talking a lot about questions. We've identified not just that there's, the need for questions. We've talked about the type of content that you want to get, but there is a way to ask questions, and there's tactics for using those as well. So on the screen, you'll see a number of different types of questions that you can ask. And one of the things that I really want you to encourage, or, keep in the back of your mind, this is your real opportunity. Again, not ask or tell, or sorry, you don't want to be telling people, you want to be asking. Really good sales conversations, you're doing 50% or less talking. Wow, that's a concept. And it's funny because I'll listen to a lot of people, and one of the first things I'll say is, how much time do you think you spend talking? And so many people, oh, I only talked maybe 30%. When in fact they talked 85 to 90%. So it is something we need to be really consciously aware of, because so often we're like, okay, here's my sales presentation. I know exactly what to say. And we're talking about the product, and we're downloading features and benefits, and we're exploring all these types of things. That's a traditional salesperson. We're not that anymore. We're a consultative salesperson. So we focus in on asking. We focus in on getting the customers to talk. And I would encourage you to think about 50% or less. So how do we do that? One of the things, we're going to ask open-ended questions, questions that get them starting to talk. That's the only way we're really going to get great information. So an open question is just like, tell me about this, or what constitutes that? Where is this coming from? So it forces them to, give you more than a one-word answer, unlike a close probe, which close probe is just like, do you buy from this, do you buy from my competitor? Well, that's a yes or a no. There are times that you will want to use a closed probe. Again, what is the information you're trying to gather, and what is the appropriate type of question? So then you'll see here the third issue, or third comment, is coattailing. And I really like coattailing, because what coattailing does is it really helps you, maybe best example would be, best way to explain it is through an example. So you might say, oh, okay, so you said that pricing was really important. So how important is quality? So what that does is, again, it's getting them talking, and helps, so many people talk about, well, the biggest issue in my industry is always about price, 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 price. So this is one way that you start to open up and remove that objection, or find ways that you're going to be able to manage that should that objection come up later in the conversation. So again, coattailing. It's like, okay, they've given you some information, and now you're building on that. What else can you know? So in that example is, okay, they're saying that the price is important, but now you're understanding how big an issue is quality. Because you may be able to, your product may be more expensive, but the quality substantially outstands. So again, all of this is really important information you're getting. Then there's a high gain question. And this one is something that you would use selectively, and hopefully when you really only have confidence, because if you're, if you just wing this out, it could actually have some negative effects. So here's a great example. What are the impressions of our reputation as a supplier in the marketplace relative to others you've used? So you'd use that example in a situation of where you know, you're 5-star, you know, you're the #1 ranking, you're 5 stars, you've won best in class awards, etc. So you're very confident in your standing of that. And what that does is that helps you to understand, you know, in that specific question, how much they know about you, and really cementing the value that you bring. All right. And then you have some leading questions. So again, it's, you know, it's quite consciously you're trying to lead them. Great example of this is, you said pricing was important, but how important is the quality? And I apologize. I just want to go back to coattailing because I misrepresented that. So coattailing, you said pricing is important, but I'd like to understand more about the pricing structure and specifics about the pricing that you currently have. So you're continuing to build. So I apologize for misleading you on that. No pun intended. Grand tour question. This is big picture. This is, you know, that blue skying, you know, that's what are the biggest things that are keeping you awake at night? So you would use that very selectively. So again, I think that you're seeing as you go through them, there are clear tactics that you're going to use for each of these. And there's a reason why you would use them. And again, it's all about getting the customers to really open up and talk, help you to really understand their business, and then provide the right solutions. Then you have universal questions, those amazing 5 why, you know, the W5s, right? The who, what, where, when, why, and add to that the hows. You know, there's some really universal great questions. When you think about the who, and you guys mentioned this in some of the Q&A responses, who are your customers' customers? What are the customers' goals and problems? Where do things happen within the company? When do we need to take action? Why must we address this problem? And how do you plan to achieve these goals? So even if you're stuck and you're thinking about it, the universal questions are a great place to go. And again, strongly encourage you to ask them in a way that are open so that you're getting them to respond. Be conscious of using those closed probes, but they do have a place. And then there's another tactic we're going to talk about now. It's called drilling down. Very, very important concept, because just like the doctor scenario, we need to really understand what the actual problem is to create the diagnosis, or in the case of offering a solution. And one of the tactics is called a 5 why. So what 5 why is a very simple concept, and it's about asking why 5 times. And I know that when I present this to people, people are like, oh, wow, that feels a little like, you know, artificial. It feels like I'm interrogating people. And it feels weird. And I get that. So let me explain what that is. So first of all, the 5 why is really getting you to ask why 5 times in sequence, or it could be 4, it could even be 6, quite honestly. You ask the why until people can't answer any further. That they, you know, you've gone through and suddenly they're really understanding what the issue is. And it may feel quite artificial, but it's all about dialing down so that you understand the problem. So here's an example, and I'm just going to read that from my notes. And it's a great example. And I will say that the way I'm going to read it does seem a little artificial and a little sort of rapid fire. What I'd encourage you to do is put in a or what. And, you know, I'm going to try and do that as I go through so that you kind of see that. So in this scenario, I'm talking to someone and they go, I say, why is the electricity out? And they respond, a fuse blew because of an overload. Oh, okay. Second, why? why was there an overload? And they respond, oh, the sump pump was drawing more electricity than usual. Oh, okay, all right, yeah, that's cool. Third why. Why was the sump pump drawing more electricity than usual? And they respond, oh, something is jamming the propeller. Oh, okay. Oh, why is something jamming the impeller? Well, because because the pit is full of loose material. Oh, why is the pit full of loose material? Oh, well, because it doesn't contain a proper caulk. Okay. So in that example, it would have been very easy if we had just gone to the issue of the electricity went out to go and replace it with a fuse. But that wouldn't have solved the problem. The actual problem is the fact that there was material in there that was jamming it and that the caulk the crock wasn't appropriately in place. So you wouldn't actually have provided a solution or a fix to the real problem. So that's why we use the 5 whys. And again, put your own style to it. But those whys are very important because it gets the customer thinking. It goes deeper so that you really understand the issue so that you can provide the right solution. All right, so asked a lot of questions, but it's only as good as how well you're listening. Can't stress that enough. It's so important that you're really actively listening. You're listening with the intent of understanding, not with the intent of selling. So here's a scenario on the screen. So in this particular scenario, a salesperson is selling copy machines to a customer. And along in their presentation, all of a sudden, the buyer says, I wonder if I have space for this. And in the first scenario, the marginal, I'm so focused in on what I'm saying and, oh, I know that this is the next, in the Q&As, these are the things I'm supposed to say next. This is the next feature and benefit I need to talk about. So they're so focused on their presentation, they sort of heard a comment, but they just continue on. So that's really marginal listening. In the second scenario, which is the evaluative, is they kind of go, oh, they've made an assumption that, based on previous calls that they've been on, that it's all about price or funding. So they just jump in and they go, oh, no need to be concerned. We have a budget plan for that. The active listener, and remember I said, active listening is where we really want to strive to, listening with the intent of understanding. Oh, would you explain to me what you mean by that? And the salesperson or the business person comes back and says, well, what I was wondering is, I don't know if I have space for it where it's located, And, oh, okay, let me get out my tape measure and we'll measure where you are looking at putting it in. And we'll review the specs to make sure that it's appropriate. So listening is so critically important. You've asked these amazing, amazing questions. You've really demonstrated your proficiency and your understanding. You've identified and shown them through social proof about how well you service your clients, how well you know their business and, identifying their needs. It's so important that you're, continuing on with that by really active listening and making sure that you're going through the process in a way that they feel seen, heard, and understood, and then co-create some solutions together. What questions do you have for me?
I just have one question here so far, Shauna, that might have to deal with rapport.
Okay.
How do you deal with the negativity of how the pandemic has affected your clients and customers?
Wow, that's a big question.
Right?
For sure. And for sure, it's something, you know, that you kind of have to deal with and somehow find out if it's, you know, an issue about the pandemic, or is it an issue around, you know, even, you know, how your company services them. But what I would encourage you to do is, you know, there needs to be that compassion and empathy. You know, as salespeople, we need to make sure that we're coming forward and, you know, demonstrating empathy and concern for your clients, and an understanding of what they're going through. So it might be some commiserating, and, you know, but also a key thing is optimism and positivity. You know, how can we demonstrate some optimism and positivity around that? And, you know, showing some, yeah, I totally get. This has been really challenging. I'm spending all my days on Zoom, and, you know, that Zoom fatigue. Wow, that's really real. You know, but, you know, here's something that I did that's kind of helped me. Uh, you know, but as salespeople, we also, you know, have to balance that empathy, and, you know, with the focus of, you know, we're here to do a job. And so I don't know if that completely answers it, but I hope that it starts to give some insight into that
Thank you,
question.
Shauna. The next one here is, what's the best way to get a closed customer to open up? If they don't engage in the conversation, you get the impression that they don't want to be on the phone.
Yeah, that's really hard. And I think that comes back to, you know, in those beginning stages of the consultative selling process, you know, sort of that building rapport, you know, is, and a big part of that, you know, that second step is establishing that context, helping them to understand what's in it for them. You know, if it's just like, you know, hard sell that's generic, that's not really going to engage them. But right from the get-go is really trying to establish what's really meaningful and important for them. So, you know, part of your pre-call plan should be trying to find as much out about their business, that person, so that you can really sort of tap into that and sort of present that unique value proposition to them that's meaningful to them. You know, and some of that might even be some of that social proof. You know, I had a client who's similar to you who, you know, just won an award because of something, right? So again, help them to understand what's in it for them.
Thank you, Shauna. We have a pretty specific one here.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on overcoming a real trend, certainly in large corporations, of not allowing their employees to speak directly to their vendors? They practice a very controlled purchasing process, often at their own detriment. They create their process, bids in a bubble without the benefit of outside knowledge, and input thwarting the kind of information gathering and exchange that we've just been talking about.
Okay, yeah, that's tough, and that's a hard question. Um, yeah, it's tough, and it's probably little steps here and there, and trying to find ways. You know, the gift to us these days is social media and, you know, different social things. So the more you can find out about the organization, the more that you can create some, you know, internal connections. So maybe on LinkedIn you connect to you know, people within the organization, and perhaps start cultivating relationships with them through social media. So it might be the content that you're providing out, you know, that they start to see different types of things, so that elevates you and your company and how you can provide some solutions, so that at least as RFPs and different proposals are coming up, that they have some insight to you and that you've established some level of credibility. You know, those would be some of the types of things that I would encourage. Hopefully that helps with that.
Thank you, Shauna. Have another one here. We often prefer to have live telephone or in-person communication, but how effective or not is emailing?
Emailing can be very effective. It's very important that you have a very clear subject line, short, and you know, because that's the thing that they're going to open up. They're going to, you know, they're going to evaluate whether it's something worthy of opening it up. If it's something you've had a conversation with them before, make sure it's short and succinct, and it speaks to the specific types of things that you want. If it is, to connect with a prospect, again, that research on who they are and trying to speak to them, and it's all about reinforcing what's in it for them. It's not a long, arduous email that talks about features and benefits of your problem. It's very quick, very short, clearly identifies what's in it for them. Why should they talk to you? So email continues to be, even if you pull up statistics, email is still a very effective tool. But you've got to be mindful about what's going to make them want to open it up, and subject line, what's in it for them, and quick actionable types of things. Click here and you can book an appointment with me and things like that. So make it as simple as possible for them. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you so much, Shauna. You've answered all of the questions. If we do have time for maybe a couple more, if you'd like to ask any questions, please feel free to enter them into the question function of your dashboard there. But you've answered them all so far, Shauna. Thank you.
Great. So happy.
Maybe we'll just give it another 30 seconds. Just got one more in here. So in my industry, emails to clients generally go unanswered. How do we change this? I think you touched on that in your last answer, but.
Yeah, so I guess what I would build on that is you might try some other tactics. There might be some different types of things. Some industries, they just receive so many emails, and some organizations, they have, especially if this is a first time and you're prospecting with them, they may have some different spam controls and things like that. So it could be that they're not being open. It could be that they're going into junk. There could be a number of things. So I would encourage you also to think about some other ways that you can reach out to them. Again, going back to what I said a couple of questions ago, is, your social media presence. Create connections, and how can you provide and create relationships with people? There seems to be a much bigger trend now towards, also, especially first calls, is reaching out if it's professional, and linking, sending a LinkedIn message. Also might be another way of getting to them. And again, if you're connected with them and you're providing a lot of good content and feedback and things that are of interest to them, they may be more receptive as they see your name come in on that email. And it's like, oh, this person has established some real credibility to me and some authority. I'm going to open it. So again, what's in it for them? Establish relationships however you possibly can. And part of that relationships is really demonstrating that credibility and social proof, and that always focusing on helping them to understand the unique value that you bring, your company and your products and services, versus the competition.
Thank you so much, Shauna. That was our last question for the session.
Awesome. Well, just a couple little housekeeping things is there are some, the CPSA, as you know, because you participated today, are constantly offering different online training programs. And here's two that are coming up. May 20th, a virtual workshop, and June 21st, a webinar. So always, I know that I have my CPSA linked as a favorite, and I'm often going into the events page and having a look at the different content. There's so much content out there that is produced by the CPSA. So again, I encourage you to take advantage of that. And of course, I'm sure that you're aware of, there are paths to certifications. There's 3 different certifications, and the content that you took today qualifies for CCE credits towards the professional education for maintaining and for you achieving your different designations. So I thank you so much for your participation today. I thank you that you joined me. I hope that you found some real value in our time together. And
Thank
Ruplan,
you. Thanks so much, Shauna, and for everybody who attended today's session on behalf of the CPSA, thank you so much for joining us today. Just one more quick comment, please feel free to download the handout that we have in the handout section of your dashboard there on consultative investigation questions. And this full recording will be emailed to you afterwards, so no worries about that. But thank you so much again, Shauna, and to everyone who's joined today, and I hope everybody has a great day.
have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Shauna. Bye now. Bye, everyone.